The idea of film editing can be tracked all the way back to the late 19th and early 20th century. Some of the earliest and most notable pieces like George Méliès' A Trip to the Moon from 1902 and Edwin Porter's The Great Train Robbery in 1903. And since then, filmmakers have developed many theories and ideas of film editing, especially when they've discovered that it is an essential element to manipulate the audience's perception of a story. 2020's The Father, directed by Florian Zeller, is probably the loudest in-your-face film when it comes to playing with the viewer's perception of reality since Christopher Nolan's 1999 thriller, Memento, that I've seen, that is. And much of that is coming from the incredible production design and art direction. The production designer is Peter Francis, who has played various roles in various projects in the past that have very expressive artwork, from 2004's Hellboy, Titanic, to the more recent Rocketman, and many others. The film is based on the director's own play back in 2012 with the same name, with himself saying that this is the best thing he has ever done in his career so far. For most of the runtime, we are here in this flat with Anthony, a man who is suffering from dementia who refuses to accept help as he loses his sense of time, space, and reality. Francis and Zeller designed the set in a way that is complex and versatile, in which they would change the set dressing, arrangements, colors, and proportions accordingly to the script to not only visualize our hero's disorientating mind, but to also confuse ours. And I think cinema really is the perfect medium to tell such a story, because, to circle back, the very nature of film editing allows the filmmakers to manipulate our perception of reality. It forces us into a scene and it always cuts to the next. The perfect example, in other words, is that you don't see a scene of a character walking into a coffee shop, buying a cup of coffee, paying, and leaving. You only see when the character is probably already in the shop or already leaving, and the fragmental quality of it always makes the audience sense that something is out of place, but can't exactly pinpoint what it is. And how do the filmmakers achieve that? Well, by taking advantage of the subjectivity and by putting us inside the mind of our hero, where we experience the world through his perspective and his perspective alone.
What are you doing here?
And that was it. We're inside his head. As the story progresses, it is made clear, or unclear rather, that this space, this flat that we're spending time in, embodies many different locations. It is Ant's flat, Anthony's flat, and it's also a care home. Like mentioned earlier, the set is very versatile in a way that the filmmakers can make both subtle and major changes to it so that it can bring the audience along to all the major and minor shifts throughout the runtime. After all, the set needs to be multifunctional. We want Anthony to be comfortable, but we want him to be hostile. We want Anne to feel a bit confrontational, but we want her to be loving as well. We want Laura to be naive, but we also want her to be emotional. So as we enter this trance alongside the characters, we can sometimes both sense and visually see the changes being made in the environment. To create contrast, the color palette is predominantly in between a cold and bluish color and its complementary colors such as orange, yellow, and red. At some point during the film, the question of whose flat it is becomes more and more muddy, to the point that the audience might not even tell left from right. Anne's version of the flat is a lot warmer. The hallway walls, the lampshades, and the curtains are mostly in this orchard coloration, yet Anne is mostly wearing a blue color shirt, which worked incredibly as a contrast to Anthony's perception of reality. Anthony's version of the flat is colder. We see these tiny changes throughout, leading up to the final revelation where the care home is dominated in a neutral and bleak color palette, making the character and us feel extremely cold. The wall in the living room that was in warmer color later turned into blue. Because Anne's walls are warmer, it brings the walls closer together as opposed to the colder colors which appear farther away by nature, feeling more empty. Anthony's color started with blue, then turned into red, back to blue again. No matter what it is, there's a jarring contrast of color tones to separate the fictional from the reality, to disorientate, so to speak. You might not see every single one of them, but you can certainly feel it. It always creates a layer of blue, and then a layer of red, another layer of blue, then another layer of red. If you're wearing blue, you better make sure you're cutting them carrots. The tiles that were once predominantly orange later is shown to be completely blue. Characters often feel artificial as they blend with their surroundings, with their presence, not to mention the paintings that changed multiple times throughout the film. Overall, the colorations turn bluer and bluer to guide us into the care home at the end. In other words, the sets evolve with the story and characters. And the repeating patterns in his production design design also reinforced the idea of the shift of perspectives that we see. We often see the same scene twice, but from different perspectives, one from a more objective one, the other from a more subjective one. The prime example of this would be the dinner scene, where we are first introduced to the argument from Anthony's perspective, only for us to revisit it later from Anne's perspective. This repetition in scene weavings makes the audience's memory feel like a broken tape. Visually, it is the pattern around the fireplace, it is the pattern on the headboard, it is the pattern of the cabinet, the pattern of the other cabinet, the tie, or the lamp. The cinematography shifted accordingly, where a close-up is used to create ambiguity in space in which you don't know exactly where the characters are, to a beautifully framed fixed wide for you to take in everything that's packed inside the frame. We don't cut away from these shots because it gives us time to examine what's going on around our hero, what's going to happen next, and what happened prior to it. And there's a certain emptiness and loneliness that comes with that, I think. I strongly believe that this shot would not convey the same feeling if it was shot in any other way. Who exactly am I? Who am I if I can't remember? Who am I if I can't hold on to the past? And who am I if I can't look into the future? Cinema and visual storytelling to me are stories that are only possible to tell in this specific medium. At least it is the best way to tell it. The Father is perfect in that sense, with its ability to deny the audience of a grip on reality. In screenwriting, they always say, enter late, leave early with every scene, but what if we can't tell the entering from leaving? The Father feels like a pool of jigsaw puzzle pieces, and as you start to put this puzzle together, you find that there's no edges to be found, so it just goes on and on and on to infinity. Because yes, The Father is all about bending our perception of reality to really put us inside the shoes of the protagonist, where we can't tell right from wrong, true from false, the future from the past, and fiction from reality. And that's why we see the fake leaves first, and then the real ones. Thank you so much for watching this video. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.